Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast podcast, YouTube video interview program that features me talking to some of the best and brightest in the atheist slash secular slash awesome community. This is episode 260. I recorded this interview on August 25th, 2021. I've been living off reunions this year. At first I thought, why bring someone back? But things happen and you don't talk to someone in a while. I initially met Reggie at the second National Nuns Convention. He and I both live in Atlanta, but we haven't met in town yet. He's from Haiti, moved to U.S. as a child, and settled down in Atlanta after a couple of tours of duty in the military. His background is perfect in this time, as we got to talk about his Haitian Freethinker fundraiser to help Haiti after their earthquake. He also was deployed to Afghanistan in 2012 and 2013, so he can give some input as to what it's like to be an occupier trying to do good. We talked about that, and of course I indulged myself in some football talk in the end. So let's start the conversation.
Look, here's what I'm trying to tell you. I understand your hopelessness. I mean, right now this country feels like the lobby of the Overlook Hotel just moments before the elevator opens and we're all drowned in blood. But the only way to make things better is to try.
Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast. Reggie, beloved, you're back. You were on initially, I think, 197. That was about 2 years ago. So totally overdue. I feel like we met like 2 years before that, and then we finally did a show. We live in the same city, and we should be hanging out more. But here we are, hanging out now.
Yeah, hanging out in the age of COVID and disasters, apparently. So thank you for having me on tonight.
We have a lot of
yes. And look, you neglected to tell me to get an adult beverage. Look what I'm drinking. I mean, you set me up for failure. This is let me get it right. Seltzer water.
Ooh, seltzer.
I'm not on your level.
To my Bold Monk quad.
What is that? Is that a local brewery type of thing?
Yeah, Bold Monk is, I think it's like one exit up 75. They do Belgian-style beers. The one beer they didn't have that I wanted to try was the Quad, and they had it in stores, so I got it. And then I had the original. This is the actual Belgian beer, the Delirium Nocturnum, with the pretty pink elephant. Since we're going to be a little dark on our topics, I figured, dark beer seems to fit well.
Yeah, have your people call my people because that needs to happen. Up 75, because I know on Howell Mill, just I know there's a lot of local IPA type breweries going on. So I kind of see stuff, but I have other things going on in my mind. But yes, that's something that we definitely need to work on. But let's get to the business at hand.
There are approximately, I think, 50 breweries in the Atlanta area alone. So you want to see them all. It's going to take you a little time. For people who want to catch up and get to know Reggie, well, you should check that original episode. But let's do kind of a catch up. So you're involved with the Haitian Freethinkers. You're the creator. What is the status of the podcast and the Facebook page?
Great question. The podcast is paused. It's been paused for a while. So I used Block Talk Radio as the platform, and Block Talk switched to a model where basically if you are not a paid member, they restrict only to your last 10 shows. So what I'm trying to do is basically download all my old episodes and upload them to YouTube so they could be available for a while. I spoke to my co-host about getting back together and getting the band back together, and then I kind of got distracted with life and it hasn't started back up yet. I want to transition to something else. StreamYard is something I've done. I believe in doing video as well as audio because why not? StreamYard is a great option. And so I just have to find the right rhythm. If my schedule could be a little bit more stable, that would help. Along with his, if you're working with a partner, and everything will start back up soon, hopefully. So that's that. As far as the page/group, it's going very well. I found someone in Canada who's a bona fide Haitian atheist. But right now, everything's all about what's going on with the earthquake. So that's what we're focused on, and everything's going great with that. So
Okay, well, why don't we do kind of a quick history of this is kind of like the United States Haiti kind of relationship, and then we'll get into what's happening now. Earlier this week, I actually saw August 22nd, 23rd, were the International Day of Recognition of the End of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. And that was, of course, thanks in part to the rebellion in Haiti. So, Haiti, independent in 1804. The United States actually was on the side of the French, considering our history, not surprising. Recognized in 1862, so only 58 years, no biggie. An economic embargo. Does that sound familiar to anybody who's aware of how we deal with other countries? And Haiti had to pay a debt to French colonists, so that really didn't help them when they were getting kicked off as their own country. Woodrow Wilson sent troops to the country in 1915 and didn't take them out until 1934. And of course, we have the history of Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier, not exactly a friend of the people. Earthquake in 2010 killed 200,000 people, which is a lot. And then the 2016 hurricane, and it seems like, and you can probably get a little deeper into this, like the country still hasn't really totally gotten over either of those events. And then the last, I think it was a month ago, the president was assassinated. And I shared a story with you about how the president's security chief, obviously not too good at the job, was a suspect in a DEA probe. There's some kind of drug issue going on there. And then on the 14th, they had the earthquake. And from what I've seen lately, I think it was around 2,200 people are dead, 53,000 houses destroyed, and about 12,000 people who are injured. So when I don't even know where to start about all this, but like, we'll just talk maybe the earthquake, since that's, we're trying to get involved. What's happening recently? When did you hear about it? And like, how much family do you have still in Haiti since you've been here? I don't know.
right,
Some years.
Yeah. You did a really good job of catching up in like a few minutes about some of the history of Haiti and the United States. So great work there. So you're the one that told me about the earthquake first. So thank you very much for that. I remember getting the notification. I thought that you were talking about the 2010 earthquake. And then I quickly looked it up and it was breaking news. And so it happened on a Saturday. And I felt immediately depressed. Like I didn't want to go to work. I felt heavy. I couldn't believe it because things were coming in on WhatsApp showing people running away, people screaming and everything. So that's that. As far as family, I do have family. Most of my family is concentrated in the capital, Port-au-Prince. So I have my mother's youngest sister and her oldest brother are still there, and various cousins and secondary cousins. So I still do have family there. I checked on them as soon as possible via WhatsApp. They all checked in saying that they're fine. So, but it's Haiti. And just because your family says it's fine, it doesn't mean that the work is done. And, images started coming up, through WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is a really big medium in how Haitians and people worldwide communicate. Because for those who don't know, there used to be a thing called long distance. And it was
not cheap.
Yeah, and it was more difficult to communicate, but now you're getting almost instantaneous images and hearing the screams, seeing people run away, and seeing people come up, showing you like the water withdrawing because there was a tsunami effect that hit the local area, and people not knowing that if you see the water drawing away from the coast, you need to get out of there. Was very, very hard to watch. And then trying to function as if everything is normal. I quickly turned on the news to see if Haiti would become number one in news cycle, and I think it made it to like number 2 at most because we're dealing with COVID. And then a few days after that, Afghanistan happened, which something that impacts me as a former soldier. So it's been very, very difficult these last couple of days, but I'm trying to turn this tragedy into something somewhat positive with, raising money to help those people. So that's the answer.
Is that tough, as someone who's from that country, because it does seem like the only time we hear about Haiti is when something bad is happening there, and maybe it doesn't impact people as much because like, oh, well, you just had an earthquake, oh, what a big deal. But just based on the numbers I shared on, the kind of damage, and yes, it's much, you can connect more now because you can see pictures, you can see video, people are sharing a lot of information. But is it hard to get people to actually, I don't know, pay attention, care, want to help and contribute when there's so much happening right now around the world and local?
Yes and no. I've had a really positive response. By the way, before I continue, today I posted some wrong numbers on my social media about the current where we are as far as the fundraising. Um, I thought it was 8,000, but it's like closer to 4,000. So I got to fix that. But I've had a really positive interaction. So it's kind of like by talking about it, someone knows someone. Before I know it, I'm emailing people from Foundation Beyond Belief. So thank you guys if you ever see this now or in the future. Foundation Beyond Belief reached out saying, hey, we're willing to help. They're going to start a fundraising campaign for the same cause, crediting Haitian free thinkers. I started one or two only because I'm figuring things out on the go. Because apparently I found out that Facebook does its own fundraising. Um, and then
Yeah.
GoFundMe was the primary thing that I was thinking of because that's what I'm used to. So because it's very shareable, the platform is very easily to set up. But that's been good. But I also, as someone that's part of the human community, I understood and I felt the I guess the feeling of being overwhelmed. Like, what can I do? Like, is my efforts even gonna make a positive difference? And look at what's going on in Afghanistan and myself. I don't know if someone who's never been to Afghanistan will care about seeing people fall from the plane, hanging onto a plane, understanding that fear of having armed men walk around your neighborhood, possibly coming to knock on your door because you work with some Americans. Those are things that I've had intimate, um, I guess, experiences with being a soldier who's deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq. So it seemed like Haiti's issues kind of got swept really quickly, and I'm sure the average person is thinking of their personal issues. How much can they give if they're going to give? And I think a lot of people just kind of give because I think a lot of people are good people. Now they just kind of look at their finances and say, well, can I give anything? So okay, here you have $25. And so, if anything, I would tell people like that small amount that you give makes a huge difference if a lot more people get involved. So, as part of this campaign, I've learned to be a little bit more, what's the word? Not to be shy about sharing this information to say, hey, I am who I am. This is who I represent. This is what I'm trying to do. And most people are like, yeah, that sounds great. Now, the caveat to all this is Haitian free thinkers, depending who it is, I don't want to say that I'm secular. It's been a very tough thing for me and say, this is what I'm doing for Haiti, but I'm a secular person because what I don't want is the person to say, oh, you know, why would I help an atheist guy helping in this case? That really gave me a lot of anxiety because I didn't want people to be turned off by who I am and what the group is about, you know, in order to help the people. So yeah, so that's been a thing. But the reaction has been very great. Whatever the amount of money that we raise altogether at the end of the campaign um, is a victory. And so I'm just thankful for everybody involved, including yourself.
So do you know, it's like, since you're raising money like for a GoFundMe, is there a particular like charity that's going to be directed, once you have finished raising money?
Yes, so
I
Doctors
know
Without
there's,
Borders, Doctors
okay.
Without Borders. So within the first couple of days, that I was considering setting this thing up because speed was very important. The people need help right now. We need to raise money as soon as possible. And oh, by the way, Afghanistan is taking all the attention away from Haiti. And of course, COVID is back in the front page, So I felt a lot of pressure to setting things up. And oh, people are emailing me and I need to attend to them. So there was a lot going on. So one of the big things I was concerned about, and I'm sure most people are thinking about, is okay, so we're gonna give this money. So where's it gonna go? So we had a really bad time with accountability with Haitian situations, whether it's the earthquake or other disasters or just social political things like the money that was given to Haiti by Venezuela, I believe. So I really asked myself, like, okay, so how can I get people to trust that I'm going to deliver the goods? So I said, okay, well, I'm just going to do what I think other people should have done, which is just show receipts. So Doctors Without Borders was an organization that I thought about even before this earthquake. I've heard about them through podcasts or whatever, and I thought they were secular in nature. And I actually called them and said, "Hey, I saw They had a special page for the Haitian earthquake their efforts in Haiti." And I said, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." Um, I kind of wanted to be straight up and be like, "So, are you a secular organization?" And the young lady said something to the effect that they're not. They're like the Switzerland of. They're neutral. That's how she described it. They're not political. They're not
I mean, neutral's better
religious.
than most. So
So I really, really, really cared about accountability, and also making sure that the money goes there. And I said to myself, like, okay, so worst case scenario, what am I going to do? Am I going to actually take the physical money, go there in Haiti, and even if I'm physically there, like, okay, I get, let's say, $5,000. Okay, it's in my hand. Okay, I'm in Haiti. Now what? I have to still pick, organizations and individuals, say like, here you need 5, here you need 10. So I said, you know what? Doctors Without Borders, they have the experience. They're well respected. They give you a breakdown of how they spend their money. And the medical piece, I think, is the most important thing that people need, because I spoke to my mom, and my mom helped me make the decision. My mom was like, oh, even if the person escaped the breaking of their house, imagine my house falls on me, like me and my loved ones, after you get accountability of, oh my God, is everybody okay? Somebody might be maimed where a limb is damaged, and if we don't get the medical response to them, then they may die because of infection. And I remember hearing the emotion in her voice, because she understood how difficult it is to get help in that part of the country, because the roads are not the best. um so time was really a factor. I said, you know what, let's make it easy. Doctors Without Borders is who I'm choosing, and I'm comfortable with that decision. And I made contact with them, and they have a making something already laid out to make it easy to just give donations. So that's where it's going.
yeah, I was not expecting you to have to, yeah, go into the country and like, yeah, physically hand money to people, because that would be tough. It's good to know that they're existing like charity groups. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, even just the quick look at like Haiti's like history is, man, that country's been through a lot. And then when they had the earthquake in 2010, it was Pat Robertson who was like, well, it's because they went against the French. I was like, but Haiti's a pretty Christian. I don't know. I know you said, I think your parents or your mom was like Catholic initially, or it's a very Catholic country. It's like, it's a Christian. Most people there are Christian. So to say that like there's something about the country because they, rebelled. I was like, I thought Christianity had a rebel, leading them initially, but not anymore.
Right. So Pat Robertson was very instrumental in helping me start the Haitian Free Thinkers, because I need to make a
Like, yeah,
response.
he's a congrats, man. Some of these, yeah, mega preachers are very helpful.
Yeah. So but a part of me says, I understand why people feel like Haiti is cursed, for lack of a better term, is because we had the assassination on July 7th, I believe. Big shock.
Mm.
I'm not necessarily into politics, especially in Haiti, because I'm so disconnected, I feel. But to have the head of state, and if you hear anything about how the assassination went down, just willing, it's just like, oh my God, another black eye. And then a storm went through right before the earthquake, and then I believe it was Grace was on its way. So it's like so much happening. And oh, by the way, we're in a pandemic,
Hmm.
So even if I'm underground, like I said, because I'm visualizing myself, what is the best way I can help? I have some money. It's kind of like I have to have my mask on. Also, I'm thinking about there's going to be a need for housing. There's going to be a need for organization. So I really want to be there and help as much as I can. So going back to the history of Haiti, you're right. Haiti is a Christian country, super Christian. Given the issues that they've had with just all kinds of disasters, and yes, they hold on. People are not saying like, what, screw Jesus, because obviously he's not looking out for us. They're still maintaining. They're still praying for a better tomorrow. And so yeah, Pat Robertson is definitely wrong on many levels. So that's just the way it is when you're ignorant.
And it's always been a tough spot with just there's, I mean, earthquakes and hurricanes alone is a tough place to be, and then to be a country that actually had a successful rebellion back when there were a lot of rebellions that didn't go so well, and then the world just, I think, treated the country poorly because of that for centuries. So it's always been tough. Like, I don't know how well you know the country, but I would guess that like the infrastructure probably isn't that great anyway. So when there's something like this, it's probably even worse than it would be anywhere else or in other places in the world.
Yes. So I
And
believe
by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's like thunder, so I might just, my internet may blow up at some point. So just to let you know, we're having storms here in Atlanta. I
no,
don't know if
that's
in your part of town, but I've been hearing it the whole time. But on, I'm like, clearly God is mad that I'm doing this podcast. So
definitely the God is really upset.
how
Yes,
could you?
I had the thunder nearby because I'm near a window, and I was hoping you didn't hear it. So, but Allah and Jesus are getting together to make sure that this doesn't happen. But
I think
no,
it's
you're right.
Thor. Yeah,
Oh, Thor. I'm sorry. Are we doing this on Thursday? No, this is Wednesday. Whose day
yeah.
is this? Wooten Day. Wooten. Wednesday is named after
I
Wooten.
don't know which. Yeah, I should know at this point.
But yeah, I can understand people's thinking that we are definitely cursed. But infrastructure, that's what we're talking about. I haven't been back in Haiti since either 2006 and 2008, definitely before the first earthquake. But I remember going there and thinking like, yeah, this is a recipe for disaster, especially for flooding. I was thinking about flooding because what happened is we have a problem with centralization. That is to say, so the Port-au-Prince is like a mixture of Washington, D.C. and New York all in one for Haiti. That is to say, it's a high concentration of people. It is the seat of power. And so you have people on top of people. And so they're building without too much thought of zoning and the repercussions of what would happen if things like flooding or landslides happen. And so that's what I thought was going to be the issue. I never knew that we were in an area that was prone to earthquakes until 2010. So now that's something else that we have to consider whenever we do rebuild, so that we can make sure that if and when the next earthquake happens, we have a limited amount of damage. And so there's going to be so much need, because I've had very little experience with dealing with earthquakes, and definitely not disasters firsthand, but there's going to be PTSD. There's going to be
Mm.
structural challenges, because really, if we were able to get the money as Haitians and rebuild a stronger infrastructure base, if you have an old house, what are you going to do? You're going to tear that up, because money is just so hard to come by. It really is. A lot of Haitians, honestly, Zach, it's basically, calling someone, usually who lives outside of Haiti, to say, hey, I'm okay or I'm not okay. We really need help right now. Can you please do something? So I know Western Union is making a lot of money,
Hmm.
all these transfer companies, because a lot of Haiti's GDP, I think, is like remittent. What's that term? When you send money abroad, that R word, remittances. So anyway, so
Hmm.
literally today, I spoke to a woman who works at the city of Atlanta. So for those who don't know, I work for the city of Atlanta, and I was fortunate to get the okay to send out through email to the entire group city that, hey, I'm raising money for this cause. And this woman called me today. She said, she's Haitian, that she knows a individual from that area that got impacted, who is just reaching out to her um, to ask for help because she got impacted directly. And she's like, hey, I heard about that you're raising money. What can you do to help her? I said, okay, you know what? Just text me your name and phone number, her name and phone number, and I'll see what I could do. Now, my fundraising is not for individuals to say, hey, here's $25, but this just shows you how people from the ground are just trying to get something, because if not, then you're kind of like left on your own, or I'm assuming you have to walk around trying to get aid to your cause. So it's just, it's difficult. It really is. But, at the same time, I'm trying to keep my head up and say, at least I'm doing something. And like I said, the response has been wonderful. And I just have to keep at it, because every day that goes by, I believe that the Haitian earthquake becomes older news, and just fatigue sets in, and just something else just occupies your mind. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Nothing really stays in the news that long when it comes to kind of disasters where it seems like the media is like looking for the new one. It's not really looking to help necessarily. It's like, hey, look at this bad thing happening. And then,
Mhm.
oh, time for the next bad thing. And when people are suffering, it's tough to, yeah, kind of like pause and go, okay, how about we focus on this for like, I don't know, a week or two and see how it goes. I just wish, yeah, it seems like the US, like every time we have a relationship with a country, it's always like it's never done as well as it could be. It's like, imagine if we could have thrown a bunch of money into Afghanistan instead of just throwing a bunch of bombs and, occupying and trying to create a like mini version of the US, which never really so far hasn't seemed to work out once.
Well, we've done several things, and one of the things that I realize is that leadership is very, very difficult, because when you're in charge, people are going to be looking at you like, "What are we doing?" And sometimes there's no easy answers. So money, bombs, people expect us to do something, and it's always going to be criticized one way or another. So I really feel for the president and all the leadership as far as Afghanistan. But same thing for Haiti, except that, as the president, the recent president, gets assassinated. So who would want to take that mantle? It's very difficult. And just as my little organization, something as seemingly simple as, where am I going to give that money, keeps me up at night. Like, okay, who's the best candidate for this, and how can I make sure that um it's going to be, the money is going to be spent in the best way? Which one of the all the different things that the people need should I focus on first? I ended up focusing on the medical piece, obviously, but well, the more I think about it, like I said, the COVID response, housing. I could have partnered with somebody that's giving away tents. you know that would be a great thing, because they're going to need housing, food, you name it. So leadership, right? It takes a while, and I understand now why these organizations have staff. People that are dedicated to answer emails and phone calls, and make sure their paperwork is straight, because it's work, and I'm finding that out literally on the go, because I still have to live my life. I still have to spend time with my family. I still have to do everything while attending to this. So it's been definitely an experience.
yeah, you kind of learn on the go, and you have to kind of trust in experts, which we're not so good at doing in this country of late. It seems. Um, this is a bit of a sideways, but I wanted to talk about this since you have more direct experience than anyone I've talked to since I've done this show. Obviously, Afghanistan's big in the news. I was just wondering about like your perspective since you were there. I forget how long exactly. I think it was 2012, 2013. You were
Mm-hmm.
actually there.
Right.
What is it like to hear about the U.S. withdrawing and the weird political how it's been kind of treated on our side? And of course, the last people tend to think about are the actual veterans who have been there, like how they feel, after being there over the past 20 years, and some people multiple tours.
Well, I've been impacted again, mental health, emotional, because I'm a big empath. That's a new word that I've learned. I'm someone that really cares a lot. Like I'm the kind of guy, if you're, if something bad happened to you, I get emotional because like, I just feel like people should not have to deal with certain things if possible. Because I always think about if it was me, what would I do? But anyway, so yes, I deployed there in Kabul in 2012, 2013. I spent a year in Camp Eggers, and I did 6 months in Eggers, 6 months at the airport. But
So this is the airport where everybody's
yeah, that's
evacuating
it.
right now, right? This is like
Yeah,
the
that's
last stronghold for the U.S.
yeah. So when I was there, my job was to facilitate or help get money to the two um, forces that we stood up, the police and the Afghan National Police and the Afghan National Army. So there's a process that people go through to bid, or basically you request uniform or arms or whatever you're asking for. We have to go through that process to eventually get them the money and then have the money go down. So that's what I was part of for half of the time. So when I got there, we were being a lot more careful about giving money than when I first got there. So at first it was like almost like whatever they asked for, they pretty much got. So now when I got there, we were being a lot more careful. So the country itself looks amazing to me. I always encourage everybody to travel, but like I think if you could take away all the strife and all that social political trouble, I think Afghanistan will make a great place for people to visit and learn about its history, learn about the people and everything. But that's not the reality. It was a war zone back then, and so when I was there, that was my reality. But having said that, um, I remember hearing people murmur and feel like basically that our efforts would be in vain. And I'll never forget people talking about that because just because of what you said, like we're trying to make these people be a little bit more like us if we would be in charge, so to speak. And our whole mantra was we don't want to be here forever. Let's have them take care of their business. And that includes being a democratic country, electing officials or whatever, and kind of like being a democracy. So that couldn't last forever. And eventually it was time to pull the troops back slowly but surely. In fact, by the time I left, I think our camp was being closed down to just go to another place. Eggers was closing down to go to another place to just shrink our footprint. Um, and lo and behold, as soon as we left, it fell very easily. And so what I was wondering is like, where were these guys at, But I kind of knew at the same time that all they have to do is kind of wait until we leave because they don't have, there's no, there's no deadline for them to just come back and do their thing. And that's exactly what happened. And so I feel really bad about it. And you see that enough people remember what the Taliban was all about. The reason why we kind of went in there, because it's kind of a mixture of different things. The Taliban, Al Qaeda, and Osama bin Laden are different, interchangeable things. But essentially, what we didn't want as Americans is we didn't want this open space where these groups can operate and potentially produce elements that would go on and do things not only in the United States but elsewhere, that we feel is terroristic in nature, not just exploding buildings or whatever, but doing what some of the things that is happening like in Nigeria. I don't know if you heard about Boko Haram and these extremist groups,
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what we really don't want, but it didn't work. And so now the world is witnessing what it looks like, at least when somebody like the Taliban comes and tries to establish what they feel is correct. Now, the conundrum for us is, okay, do you want to go back and do a minimum of 20 years? We did 20 years already. Are you going to invest time and money and possible bloodshed again? Or are you going to stay out? You're going to hear about the death. Just like I'm hearing from people in Haiti saying, like, listen, I'm having this hardship. Can you help me? Same thing's happening with the Afghan people and with the partnerships that we built with them in America. And now, as a veteran, if I know someone over there, I'm like, what am I supposed to do as an individual? What is the state gonna do? So it's a very difficult situation. But I could tell it's a very real situation as far as the fear and the repercussions. So
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes because it sounded like when we're leaving Vietnam, I don't know how many people got out of Saigon at the end. I don't think it was very many. They were saying that the initial goal was like get 50,000 people out of Afghanistan because the withdrawal deadline is a week. It's the 31st. And they said as of today, they've already reached 80,000 because there's this weird media thing where they're like, Biden's terrible because he's the one that left, even though it was Trump who made the deal and Trump who freed the guy who's running Afghanistan. But it has to be so frustrating, like 20 years, pretty much a generation, and then the Taliban is taking over again. And then the way women are going to be treated in that country, the 34 million people, I think, in Afghanistan, we're not going to get to take everybody out who wants to leave. So it's going to be a tough place for people to live. And I just hope we can support, but it seems like we're just like kind of leaving it. And the thing that the U.S. Army might need to figure out is like, an escape plan, because people are like, well, we have to like blow up our weapons and like they're going to get our weapons. Like, well, they're probably going to get our weapons unless, they blow them up because they're not shipping stuff back to the U.S. Like that's not really cost effective. It's tough enough just to get people back here. And what I hate is like the Republican side is like, they don't want any more immigrants coming in. And I'm sure you could talk about that too, being an immigrant too and living an American dream in a country where it seems like one party is kind of against that idea when that's kind of made us as strong. But that's just me kind of rambling. I don't know any thoughts you have there.
all those things are real and related. And it's not just an American thing. If you are a former colony, if your country is doing better than your neighbor, you're going to have immigrants. So Haiti, bringing it back to the Haitian topic, the Dominicans are doing better financially. So they have a large Haitian population there, and they themselves are having Trumpian-like thoughts because it's kind of, oh, we don't want no more of those people because fill in the blank. And unfortunately, it's a human thing, race or ethnic or religion, it doesn't matter. People say, you know what? Okay, that's enough. No more Mexicans, no more Haitians, no more. I mean, I've seen it within Africa, the African continent, where I think like some countries that border South Africa are having issues with immigration. And so from the outside, you're like, okay, they're all black, they're all Africans. What's the problem? But people like to divide themselves for whatever reason. And I've always been like a global person. I'm like, why don't we all just treat each other like family? Like, no, I hate borders. I hate all this division, but that's not the reality that we deal with. So yeah, it's a tough decision that we have to do. Where's the line? And I think that's a legit question, whether it's Democratic or Republican, because the money is involved. Who's going to send their sons, daughters, and friends to Afghanistan? No, most people are not going to volunteer. That's just the reality. Next, what are we doing there? You need a defined mission. You need because if you don't have a defined mission, you could be there for literally 100 years. I'm not even kidding. 100 years.
Yeah, I don't think it's like our army, 2001, where we basically got the Taliban out. That took a few months, but then there was this occupation side, and that part, of course, that's not something really the army's that great at. I don't know the kind of training maybe you had going in there, but it's like, yeah, what were you trying to accomplish when you were there? Do you feel like you had really, like when you came to Afghanistan, like, did you know, like, here's what we're trying to do and here's how successful we are? And, were you able to like interact with people who lived in the country, and were they able to like communicate to you, here's what we want from you and here's what we don't want from you? That kind of stuff.
Well, me as an individual, Afghanistan, because I've been to Afghanistan and Iraq. Iraq, I had more interaction with normal Joe Iraqis, even though we didn't speak the same language. Afghanistan, I had less interaction with the average Afghani. And if I did have interactions with Afghani, we're talking about someone who's working and has been vetted to be safe to work within our base, because I lived in like a walled city, so to speak. So it's not the same. And even if I was able to go in the streets, I'm still an outsider. I'm a black guy in Afghanistan, and then my uniform is different. And so just knowing this basic information, the person might be a little bit standoffish. Who knows? The colors, how they interact with you. But the few Afghanis that I work with, everything was cool. Of course, they're different. I like how their look is different. Like they're very Asiatic, and it's a lot. I'm a cultural person. But anyway, going back to the mission. So when I was there, I was just a body that was filling in a seat to help the mission. And the mission was to get these people to be self-sufficient in the hopes that they can do what we're doing now, but from Afghan people. So that was the mission. So initially, you're right. Like coming in is part of the mission. Holding the territory, if you're able to do so, is another mission. Probably the next aspect is to, for lack of a better term, transform them into something like essentially a democratic situation where hopefully they're not producing what we would call extremists or terrorists. Okay, how successful that works out is very hard to tell unless you need time to see if it's going to be successful. And this time right now, it didn't work out with Afghanistan. And then after you get them to kind of have secured forces and democratic processes, now you have to have a withdrawal plan. So it's about a four phase type of thing. And hopefully once you leave, what you help build through money, time, and lives don't fall apart. But if you're a student of history, you know that the Russians did something similar. And before them, I just learned recently by looking at some YouTube videos that the British actually was in that area as well, doing stuff that's similar. It's a very interesting.
They've been invaded a lot.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting history. But at the end of the day, no matter where it is, I'm not okay with people walking around with arms, forcing women to do things that they don't want to do. Like I can't. I don't know. I wish in a way I can speak to a Taliban to be like, why do you think that this is even okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, now I can understand the perspective. Like, well, who are you as an American to tell me what to do? we, no matter how you slice it, we invaded that country. Okay, so that's just a thing. But while we were there, were we really that bad? And this is a real question. Were we really that bad as far as forcing them to do what they don't want to do? I mean, I'm privy to say that, I didn't see any of that. As someone that was on the ground, even though as a soldier, American, whatever, we didn't come and say, you will be, I don't know, democratic, you will eat pork, you will wear tight pants, or we wouldn't give you McDonald's whether you like it or not. I don't know what they would say to say, well, you guys brought all this, haram stuff, and, making us be, I don't know what they'd say, their complaint is, but I do know that the people there are complaining about a lot of changes, especially the females, man. It's, those guys, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking right now. They're acting like, oh, we're the better, more kinder Taliban. I'm like, no. If you really wanted to do this the way that we're used to, go through a democratic process. Go through a vote. If the people wanted to go and be like in a Taliban state of mind, they'll vote a leader. Excuse me for saying this, but like a Donald Trumpian. We've had a time 4 years ago, right, with Trump and the Republican state of mind, that they had their leader, they had their day, and we had to deal with that. If you're not part of that group, that would be the best way. But no, they're doing it through force, so it's very difficult.
I would say, as someone who's not been in the armed forces at all, I would definitely say that someone who has been deployed there and probably interacted with some people there would have to have sympathy for them. And also, you are it's like you are doing a job in a way, and it's a volunteer army. It's not always like for God and country, or in your case, just country, but it's also like you're making a living, you're trying to do the best you can, but also their country was occupied and we are just drone striking the crap out of everybody. And you could see where they'd be like, yeah, America's bad, so let's go. These guys are the opposite. Even though, oddly enough, after everything happened in Afghanistan, there were a lot of conservative reactionary types who seemed to agree with most of what the Taliban did. They seem to be very except for them being a different religion, their beliefs are very conservative. They don't seem to like women that much. They seem to like a patriarchal kind of community. So,
you mean the Afghans?
I was saying like the conservative reactionary people who loved Trump when he made the deal with the Taliban, and all of a sudden hated Biden when he actually completed it. They seem to agree with the Taliban. They're very patriarchal. They're very, they're basically Sharia, but a Christian version.
There's definitely
which is not something that's surprising for us, but it should be surprising for like the average American. Like, wait a second, aren't we supposed to be different? Are we supposed to like believe in equality? But I don't know if that's the case universally.
No, there's definitely an American Sharia. That's different. That's definitely an American version of the Taliban. Those of us. I'm a culture nerd. I'm in this secular situation, and I love to expose myself. Yeah, there's definitely people like that, and they tend to be Republican. I don't know any left leaning people that are like that, and so yeah, they can definitely kind of identify with what the Taliban are doing, even though they may not say it that way, but they exist. They definitely do.
Well, before I get to a bit of a lighter question, I had to ask, like, so you're a police officer. What has it been like the last year and a half? Because whatever people say about the police, that would be considered pretty much an essential worker. So what was it like doing this job during COVID?
It's been very, very difficult. You're bringing up COVID. So, well, before COVID, there was the unrest, the summer of hell. And actually that took place during COVID, actually. No, now that I think about it, because
there's been unrest for a while, but there was a lot of it going on during COVID too.
So it's been, again, just very stressful. The job is stressful enough without those factors, but COVID The positive, well, the positive thing about COVID is that it had less people on the street. So when when they recommended that people to stay home, there was less people in the street. So it made it easier to get to work. It was easier to get parking spaces, and we dealt with less people. So that was the good thing. Then they asked us to kind of enforce some things that were COVID related. That was kind of hairy because it's kind of like, hey guys, don't congregate, but legally can they? It's that kind of thing. Um, then it's kind of when I'm actually dealing with the public, I have to mask up and
I
wearing a
was wondering
mask.
about that.
Yeah, wearing a mask and potentially having to do things like running or uh, fighting with someone is very annoying. And then when we do make contact with people that they're COVID positive, now I'm worried about bringing the disease back to my family. I've heard people say that, listen, when they come home, they take off all their clothes, they just segregate themselves from their family, because I'm always going outside, and the kids at one point were doing computer learning, and so that was a challenge. And I've had a couple of close contacts, and I actually all of us ended up getting COVID in January. So that took me out of action for like 2 weeks. So it's definitely been a challenge. And now we're at the phase where we're kind of trying to get back to normal, but at the same time, the Delta variant is out there just tearing stuff up. And amongst some of our people, they're still not really on board with getting vaccinated. It's amazing. And so now there's this kind of like internal, you can't tell me what to do type of thing. No, I've heard this. And one officer told me recently that he knew personally someone that got the shot and died of COVID. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to touch that hot potato. I'm just going to let him be, because there's a lot of stuff within the ranks where, misinformation and strong personal views about vaccination, which to me is unbelievable. I happen to be vaccinated. I understand and I support freedom and everything, but at the same time, I'm for getting back to normal. I'm for good information, not misinformation. But I'm telling you, it's very difficult right now with that.
Well, at this point in the show, we have to get rid of freedom. We have to talk about a little matchup we have going on. So you are a Miami Dolphins fan, and I was, strangely enough, grew up down the street from where Dan Marino grew up, and he ended up on the Dolphins, of course, a Pittsburgh guy.
All right.
But the Dolphins are playing the Tennessee Titans on January 2nd. So how do you feel about this game coming up? Since this will be week 16 of the year, we'll be getting like right about playoff time. Your favorite Jesus-loving quarterback Tua is going to be leading you guys to a possible playoff. What do you think about this game?
I think it's going to be an exciting game. That's a game that we definitely need to attend together. We've been talking for a while about doing different things. I actually visited Nashville in the summer. I dragged my family to go over there. It was hot, but I think it's so far in the future that so many things can happen that I kind of don't want to think about it. But obviously, it's going to be exciting because I think the Titans have a really, really good opportunity, especially on offense, to do something very special. And there's so many things that ties us together. You have our quarterback, used to be the Miami Dolphins quarterback, who's doing great over there. I'm happy
Thanks
for him.
that.
So but you're gonna have to pay him soon. I don't know if he got pay
He got the
raise for.
extension. He got paid, yeah.
Okay, so you have that. You have Julio Jones, which again connects us because we both live in the Atlanta area. He goes over there. He doesn't even have to sell his house here. So there's going to be a lot of good things. But at the same end of the day, I want my team to win. But that's going to be exciting. So I'm really hoping that both are in a prime position to do something great. And I'm serious about doing this road game over there and witnessing with my own eyes this great game that's going to happen January 2nd. I'm just afraid that injury is going to derail both of our seasons. That's my thing. If we
Does
can
happen.
stay, yeah, if we can stay healthy, I think we're going to have a chance to be players at the end. I don't see why not. We have some really good teams. I'm just I don't know. It's just too good to be true, especially from the Dolphins' perspective. The Titans have been more stable, more. You can predict that they're going to be in position because their division is not as tough as ours, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I really would like that game to be meaningful, and I would really like for us to go there together, and I would really like the Dolphins to go ahead and pull out that win. So.
Well, I have to disagree. Agree to disagree on that one. So let everybody know where they can find the fundraiser and where to keep track of the Haitian Freethinkers and to keep track of what you're up to when the inevitable when you get back into that podcast business, because once you podcast you can't stop. That's what I hear anyway.
You can't stop. Haitian Freethinkers is what you need to Google. If you Google Haitian Freethinkers, something will come up. haitianfreethinkers@gmail.com is how you can email me. And if you need the links, I'll send them to you. But if you're on Facebook, that's
I'm in the
easy.
show notes.
Yeah, Haitian. So the
We're on
GoFundMe.
Facebook. Yep.
Yep, GoFundMe is on Facebook. The group, the page. I'm sure you have the link. It's on my personal wall, Reggie Beloved. You see the name. So I could get you all that information. So the campaign, the one that I set up for GoFundMe ends officially on 16 September. After that, I'll keep everybody in the loop of how much we've donated or collected, and then when the donation is sent to the Doctors Without Borders. And I did it for 1 month specifically because that's when I started. I think I started August 16. So 16 September gives everybody a couple of paychecks to kind of get themselves together and donate. That's the thought process. And I'm looking forward to let you guys know the total amount and go from there. So yeah, Haitian Freethinkers everywhere. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, everywhere. And I thank you for having me on your show once again. And inevitably, the show will start back again with some exciting guests on my podcast. So, and you're going to be one of them. And go Dolphins.
He had to do it. He had to throw it in there. Well, thank you, Reggie, for being on. It's been fun, and it's.
What have you always dreamed of?
Pleasuring myself orally.
Live read. Did I say I didn't like the Fear and Maulding podcast? Well, I can't relate to Hassan Piker and co talking about making a living off Twitch and or podcasting, but I can relate to their disappointment in the rightward turn of Adam Carolla, the odd life of Howard Stern having more money than 10 gods and not being able to quit the radio show, and the strange controversy that came up when Hassan bought a house. Yeah, you should check that out. If you want to support this show, be like Freethinker215, Alan Marks, Hugh Mann, Chris of the Postmodern Polymath Podcast, Larry, Daryl, and the other Daryl, go to patreon.com/Zachrilege. Follow me on Twitter, like the page on Facebook, and send all mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. Always looking for guests. Thank you to Reggie for being on this week, and soon David Fitzgerald will be back. So until then, let's continue the conversation.